There are such few shocking and horrific events in modern American history that the remnants of it can still be felt on up until this day, just the same as when the event first took place.
On a spring night 21 years ago, James Byrd Jr. was looking for a ride back to his Jasper, Texas home. The men who offered it to him viciously murdered Byrd in a crime that shocked the nation. Byrd's sister, Luvon Harris, says those 24 hours threw the family into a state of disbelief.
Things that are just so shocking and grotesque, it makes you wonder and question that if the individuals who committed these heinous acts were even human to begin with. But in my opinion, I don't think they even were human, because you can't be human and have a soul and practice white supremacy. Now, with that being said, with the picture painted in that context and that lens for you to view it through, it should be noted that viewer discretion is advised. This video contains adult themes that might not be suitable for some viewers. This is the story of the lynching of our brother, James Byrd Jr. James Byrd Jr. was born May 2nd, 1949 in Beaumont, Texas. He was the third born out of 8 children, the mother Stella and father James Byrd Sr. But the parents raised their children in the East Texas community of Jasper, and their lives revolved around the church. James Byrd's mother was a Sunday school teacher and his father was a deacon at the Greater New Bethel Baptist Church. A young James Byrd also contributed by singing and playing the piano. In 1967, Byrd graduated from Jasper ROWE High School, and I spelled the name of the high school because I have problems pronouncing it. He was actually a part of the last segregated class in history. Our brother James Byrd didn't attend college despite having excellent academics, like 2 of his sisters went on to do. Instead, he married just a few years out of high school and fathered 3 children, Renee, Ross, and Jamie. He worked as a vacuum salesman, but unfortunately he struggled with alcoholism. Byrd and his wife divorced in 1993, and he returned to Jasper, Texas in 1996 with the hopes of improving his life, so he entered AA. Here's where our brother James Byrd's story will unfortunately take a turn for the worse. In the early morning hours of June 7th, 1998, Byrd was leaving his parents' home. Now, some people say he was allegedly drunken when he hitched a ride from 3 white men in the back of their pickup truck. Unbeknownst to our brother James Byrd, before taking that ride, he had just hitched a ride from 3 hardened and hardcore white supremacists. This unfortunate move to do so would unfortunately seal our brother James Byrd's fate. So instead of them taking him home as he asked and as he had thought they were, they drove him to a deserted area, beat him profusely, and even defecated on him. Insane. Man, I tell you, these events are even hard for me to talk about, damn degenerates. They chained him around the ankles with a heavy-duty pulling chain and tied him to the back of their pickup truck and drove him like that while his body had to absorb the impact of that hard concrete. Now, James Byrd was moving around tied to the back of that pickup truck side to side as to try to lessen the pain that he was feeling, which I know was excruciating. He even kept his head forward and up as to try to avoid some kind of head trauma. But it all was ended for James Byrd when his head and his right arm was severed from the body after he hit a culvert on the road. Very sad and horrific event, man. I remember this thing like it was yesterday. I was a young teen at the time. My mom was a very protective mother of me by nature, but her protectiveness was amplified after this event happened. She wanted to know my every coming and goings. My mother would always reassure me of the danger that white supremacists possessed, being as though she was beaten nearly to death by a group of white supremacists when she was younger during the early 70s. But yeah, I digress. To add insult to injury, the white supremacists had some nerve to dump our brother James Byrd's body out front of what was left of it out front of a foundational Black American church, to be discovered by the congregation early that Sunday morning before service. Man, this is real sickening, man, I tell you. There was also a movie put out on this back in 2003 entitled Jasper, Texas, starring our good brother Louis Gossett Jr. Now, I know you guys are wondering just what happened to the 3 white supremacists. They were caught after police found what was left of James Byrd's body. There was a wrench left on the scene with the name, Barry attached to it. Some of Byrd's belongings were also recovered from the scene. A witness in this case also came forward, and I believe the witness was a kid according to the movie, and he attests to seeing James Byrd enter the pickup truck of 3 white men and them driving off together. Now I'm going to paint a picture for you of what Jasper, Texas was like during this particular time. At the time, Jasper, Texas was a small town according to the movie, but it still is a small town after me going back and doing my homework. And from the information I gathered, the town had a black population, but I'm not too sure as to how large or how small this black population actually was. And the townspeople, white people, black people, even black church folks alike, were trying to minimize and downplay Jasper, Texas not having no racism in hopes of keeping the peace and preventing the uprising. But the James Byrd ordeal forced black folks to remove the film from their eyes, even the black mayor they had during the time. R.C. Horn. R.C. Horn was Jasper, Texas' first black mayor. The whole town, for that matter, was forced to acknowledge that they did in fact have racism, white supremacy going on in the town. Hell, the town still had a racially segregated cemetery up until the year 1999, in which a fence ran through the cemetery and divided white people and black people. This fence was only torn down a year after James Byrd's murder, and it had been up 100 plus years up until that point. Insane. In the aftermath of James Byrd's death, the new Black Panther Party came down to Jasper, Texas. I believe they were out of Houston, Texas or something like that, but don't hold me to it. The Klan also made an appearance to display their white supremacist views on things. The new Black Panther Party and the Klan just about had a head up, but the sheriffs were able to keep the peace, according to Jasper, Texas, the movie. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson even made an appearance in Jasper, Texas. Even Bill Clinton, the president at the time, spoke out about what happened to James Byrd.
That atrocity shocked the conscience of the country, and a strong response is clearly needed.
I ask for your thoughts and your prayers to be with the family of Mr. Byrd today and with the people of that community.
Last night, the popular Washington, D.C. shock jock known as the Grease Man got some of his own medicine from the host and audience of an African-American radio call-in show.
How much shock do black people have to take?
This appearance was part of an apology campaign by the Grease Man, whose real name is Doug Tract, fired last week after playing part of a song by African-American recording artist Lauryn Hill, and then saying, quote, "No wonder people drag them behind trucks."
Everywhere you turn, everyone was talking about the horrific events that James Byrd suffered. 2 out of the 3 white supremacists that lynched our brother James Byrd were executed. The first white supremacist, Loris Russell Buer, was executed September 21st, 2011. The second white supremacist, John William King, was executed April 24th, 2019. John William King also had a tattoo of a black man hanging from a tree on him, and he used to proudly display this and brag about it. He also had a tattoo of a Woody Woodpecker dressed in a Klan uniform that he used to boast and brag about. The third white supremacist, Sean Berry, was sentenced to life in prison. It should be noted that none of these white supremacists expressed any remorse for the crimes they committed. It should also be noted the extremely long time they took to execute, 2011, 2019. This is decades after the fact. And it's just so very amazing to me that this Barry is still able to live in prison. If you ask me, he ain't even worthy of life. The James Byrd and Matthew Shepard hate crimes bill was passed on October 22nd, 2009 by then Democratic President Barack Obama.
You know, as a nation, we've come far on the journey towards a more perfect union. And today we've taken another step forward. This afternoon I signed into law the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. This is the culmination culmination of a struggle that has lasted more than a decade. Time and again, we faced opposition. Time and again, the measure was defeated or delayed. Time and again, we've been reminded of the difficulty of building a nation in which we're all free to live and love as we see fit. But the cause endured, and the struggle continued, waged by the family of Matthew Shepard, by the family of James Byrd, by folks who held vigils and led marches, by those who rallied and organized and refused to give up, by the late Senator Ted Kennedy, who fought so hard for his country.
That's decades after our brother James Byrd's untimely demise. And the fact that they attached Matthew Shepard to it minimized the bill's power to protect black people from anti-black racism and crimes committed based upon color. While the Matthew Shepard incident is very sad, no one deserved to be killed based upon their sexual preferences. So RIP to Matt Shepard. But I don't believe it should have been attached to the James Byrd hate crimes bill. This is why I'm always saying, and I'm always so adamant about us needing a black hate crimes bill to protect us against white supremacists who unjustly kill black people based off of color. The James Byrd case was the first time white men were sentenced to death for killing a black person in Texas history. James Byrd's family also has an organization called the Byrd Foundation, where they push for and promote racial healing with goals to encourage racial unity and to reduce racially motivated crimes. And I want the family to remember that we're not too far removed from the gruesome, horrific events that our brother James Byrd was forced to endure. Hell, it just took place back in 1998. That ain't that far off in the distance. But in closing, I want to say RIP, rest easy to my brother James Byrd, and my condolences goes out to his friends and family. And we got to keep on making sure we speak his name to make sure him or his life ain't forgotten. And in that way of us continually keeping on to say his name, we make sure he stays relevant and keep his name in the lexicon so he can go on to live forever. And once again, I want to say rest easy to my brother James Byrd, and my condolences goes out to his friends and family. Just my thoughts on the matter. Peace.